What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 22 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and guys, it's Preakness weekend. We all know second jewel of the Triple Crown, what everyone looks forward to. Again, we had a great weekend last weekend with Peter Pan Day and with those 2-year-old Ascot races. But obviously, you go Kentucky Derby, no one cares, and then you go the Preakness. So going to be an absolutely big day today. We're talking about the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes, which is the Phillies version of the Preakness Stakes, 2 weeks after the Kentucky Oaks. And then we'll go into, obviously, all races. It's an all-stake late Pick5, starting in race 9 and ending with the Black-Eyed Susan. There is a race after the Black-Eyed Susan, but we are not talking about that today. Again, it is races 9 through 13, all stakes, including 2 grade 3s and the grade 2 Black-Eyed Susan Stakes. Guys, going to be an absolutely great show, as always. But if you are new here, please go down below the video player and hit subscribe. It helps us out a lot. The numbers continue to grow. We're now up at 2.2 thousand after being just before 2,000 before the Derby. So all the thanks to you guys. Greatly appreciate everything you do to help us out. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Does the same thing for us, except it kind of pushes out these videos. And especially with the Preakness coming up, we'll want as much of our content to get out there as possible. So please smash the like button. We would really appreciate it. If you are more of an audio listener, guys, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Those are the 3 main audio platforms that we use. Every single show, both of Bettin N Boozin and our sister show, the flagship show on Thursday nights, all get put onto these audio platforms. So if you'd much rather have an audio platform to listen to in the car, listen to while you're at work, anything like that, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor is your place. And guys, power picks again. We absolutely smashed it out of the park last weekend after a rough Derby day. We needed to have a good weekend, and Howard and the guys definitely did. Again, only $4 a weekend. It bills $16 per month. That's the only way Patreon lets do it. Obviously, we had the yearly subscription, but that has come and gone. But an absolutely great tip sheet, if I do say so myself. And again, only $4 a weekend to get blowout editions for the Preakness. And if you buy it now, you'll stay on through the Belmont Stakes and you'll get another blowout edition come that Saturday. So please, guys, if you are interested at all, go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for more information. It is also below the video player. And thank you to our wonderful sponsor for not only this episode, but every single episode of Bettin N Boozin, BetUS, which is a fantastic sports betting casino platform that I use personally and my co-hosts do. My Patrick does as well. They have 200 games a day for 300 and 400 different props to bet on. When you are depositing money, if you're depositing $100 or more, please use code RACING3H and you'll get a free 125% back if you deposit, again, $100 or more. That link is in the description as well. It's near the bottom. So again, thank you always to BetUS for sponsoring today's video. And if you're wondering about us, our backgrounds, or anything, we have previous editions of the Power Picks there as well. Our great co-host Pete Visco created a website, HHHRacingPodcast.com. Guys, like I said, we're not going to waste any more time here. We have a lot of people watching already. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Absolutely greatly appreciated. I'm going to go through real quick these comments, and then I'm going to bring on my co-host so we'll get right into the handicapping. Michael Osmond, I was talking about him with Hoosier Philly in the chat. It's the America's horse, as she was bet down to 7-1 in the Kentucky Derby future polls at one point. So she had to go on the thumbnail, Michael. Of course she did. But Wonder Wheel and Hoosier Philly have left my mind, which I've never read a more factual statement in my life. He says Wonder Wheel and Hoosier Philly have left my mind until they beat me at 70-1 at Saratoga. Yeah, we'll probably see them Whitney weekend when I end up going to Saratoga, and then they'll just dumpster me at 30-1. Probably not Wonder Wheel, but Hoosier Philly, if she loses this race by, again, another 10, then she'll come back after maturing and destroy everybody, which is usually how it goes. The boss is here. Howard, thanks so much for joining the show. Can't wait to the Phoenix Suns to announce Doc Rivers and the next head coach. He would lose his mind. He's actually not here on the camera right now, but keep that coming in the chat because he'll love the Doc Rivers Suns talk, because I'm sure he's thrilled about the Suns wanting to hire the greatest coach in NBA history. Isn't that right, Charlie? Rob N., thanks so much for joining the show. I see your comment. The Cincinnati Reds. Well, yeah, I can't bet on the White Sox, let alone the Reds. I mean, it's absolute collapse. I know exactly what you mean. But talking about sports, Charlie, I'm bringing it on for Charlie because he can't give me shit about it now. The Blues won today. Big ups the Blues, and I'll see them June 10th for the UCL final in case anyone is interested about that. Steven Vanderbroek, thanks so much for joining the show again. Really appreciate it. Stephen Haugum is at PayPal only. That is Howard's. It usually is PayPal only, but when you sign up Patreon, you can use any of them. I believe they allow you to just use credit card up front, and you don't have to have a PayPal account. You can put your credit card in. But obviously, if you go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast, they will have all that information for you listed out. But I do believe you don't only have to use PayPal. You can use many different ways of payment. Steve, thanks so much for joining the show. I don't think I've seen your name before. Greatly appreciate it. Jeffrey Wilson says, hey, Kyle, just stopped in real quick, taking a break from golf handicapping. Good luck this week to everyone. Jeff, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Hey, I love the golf. You know that from me. My golfers suck as usual. Homa actually had a good weekend last weekend, but I need Hovland and Keegan Bradley to step up for me to cash in that golf pool. So thanks so much for joining the show, guys. Greatly appreciate it. Jim Pillar's Oak Hill is just over an hour. He said talking about the golf. Jim, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Joseph, I don't think I've seen your name before. Thanks so much for doing the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. I'm hooked. Been waiting anxiously for your podcast. Appreciate all the tips from you guys. Cheers to you, my friend. Let's absolutely crush these bets this weekend. Guys, like I said, without further ado, we are going to get right into the handicapping of the late pick 5 on Friday, Black-Eyed Susan Stakes Day. For my co-host right now, I'm going to bring him on the screen from New Jersey, Patrick Kuenzel, and from The Ohio State University, although I think he is out on summer break, Charlie Freeman. Boys, what's going on?
Not that much. Excited for this Black-Eyed Susan card.
Charlie, haven't heard too much from you and, vacation, man. What's going on?
Yeah, no, I'm back from Florida. Just got back yesterday. Had a okay time at Gulfstream. Wasn't actually as bad as I thought it would go. Yeah, I'll bite my tongue on the sports stuff until the end, but let's just say I was thinking I was going to be calm, but let's just say Howard might have lit something under me a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, Doc Rivers talk, man. Doc Rivers and James Harden to the Suns. All your favorite players are all coming your way. But I wanted to give a quick shout out again to Joseph Lawson. Again, definitely worth the power picks. Greatly appreciate it, man. And again, that's HHH or patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. And Michael Bryan, thanks so much for joining the show again, my friend. Howard and the group put a lot of work in. Always worth a look and a listen. Michael, thanks so much for the kind words. Greatly appreciate it, because especially for these weekends, Preakness and Belmont weekend, which is what you'll get if you subscribe today to the Power Picks. Howard and the guys are going to be absolutely hitting it hard for you guys these next few weeks. So be sure to go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Guys, let's get into it here. Like I said before the show started, or before I started going through the comments, it starts in race 9. It is not the last 5 picks, or not 5 races of the actual day sequence. It ends in the Black-Eyed Susan, so it ends up being races 9 through 13 at Pimlico on Friday afternoon. This is the very one stakes, is the first stakes race on the day. As I bring up my screen right now, there we go, guys. It is a full field of 11, 10 technically, because you'll have the number 7 Golden Effect, who is entered as a main track only. Full field of 10 going a 5 furlongs on the turf, excuse me. For fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. And as I bring up the picks right now, I'm going to switch to the PPs as well. 2 guys have the exact same picks on top. I, however, am somehow I'm the lone man out this time. It's usually Charlie being the lone man out, but Patrick and Charlie agree with the number 9, who will be your morning or post time favorite. Or no, actually Train to Artemis is morning line favorite. Interesting. I did not think that Wesley was not going to be morning line favorite in a race like this. But guys, let's move on to the PPs. Patrick, you are to my right, so you are going to go first in this spot. What do you like most about Her World? Again, trained by Wesley Warden, when ridden by Irad Ortiz Jr.
Yeah, listen, last race out, she, was impressive, won by a head. Didn't do anything that made me think that she would romp over this field. The speed figures were very quick in that last race. It was an allowance race. I just think this race came back kind of weak. And I feel like with the speed that she proposes and the way she can, come from the outside post, she does have Spicy Marg inside of her who is going to show speed as well. So that'll be interesting to see. I just it's one of these races where you kind of have to pick and choose which one's going to be the speed of the speed and which one's going to sit back. And I looked at both Spicy Marg and Her World, and I just think that Her World comes back better after watching the race replays. And I went with Her World, but I have been burned by Wesley Ward the last week, so Charlie might have to tell me something that gets me confident in Her World.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I will say, Charlie, we'll go to you. Obviously, you also have this horse on top, but there really is a lot of speed in this race. And I get it's 5 furlongs on the turf, so there's going to always be a lot of speed. But I mean, like, there's an overwhelming amount of speed. It looks like on paper, at least.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of speed, but for me, the confidence I have in the 9 horse, again, outside of obviously the connections, but not even just with Wesley, but obviously you get IRAD as well, is I just like seeing both the speed figures and also the fact that this horse showed it could go farther and be able to maintain the lead. So for me, that gives me more confidence. I feel like 5 furlongs shouldn't be a problem. It's shown it has been able to hold up, whereas some of these other speed horses either have faded going longer or have even faded going at this distance. So that was really why I had my confidence on the 9. I just feel like we've been seeing, these turf sprint races are always brutal, but I feel like what I've been seeing a lot recently is it hasn't been a lot of the closers getting there. It's been most of the time has been not even just the speediest of the speed, but a lot of times it's been the ones that have been able to, sit just off the speed and then on that final turn kick by. And so I don't know if the 9 1,000% will be on the lead or not, but what I do see again for the distance is that maybe it'll be able to last longer than some of the other speed around it. So that's why that's the angle I took with the 9 is I think when it comes to that kick home, I think it'll have the most left in the tank for those towards the front. And I feel like, again, with the way the track's been playing, that favors the 9 in this kind of race.
Yeah, and I will say, Michael, to your point that you say that you have 2 or 4 horses, and it just really this race is easily the most wide open on the card, in my opinion. And Howard just donated to himself, but I'll get to that in a second. Super chats. Thank you for the generous donation to yourself, Howard. I greatly appreciate it. But guys, the boss speaks, I listen. Super chats are now live. You can show your support for the podcast. Obviously, there's no way do you have to donate by any means to watch this stream, but they are greatly appreciated. So Howard, thanks again for donating. I can't even say it with a straight face. Thanks so much again for donating to yourself. But guys, super chats are live. So if you feel inclined to donate, again, it's in no way needed and no way expected by any means, but you can now show your support. Thanks so much. Greatly appreciate it. Guys, like I said, this is easily for me. Obviously, it's a turf sprint, so I say these, I feel like every time for turf sprints, but this race is the most wide open on the card, in my opinion. The Wards are probably going to be your morning line favorite or your favorites come post time. I don't think the number 2 is going to be post time favorite. I mean, there's just so much speed, and to Tanner Hawkins's point, is best of the speed is always where I start play in these turf sprints. I agree with you, and that's why I've taken the 5 with a grain of salt here. I take the number 5, Thundering Creed, for Joseph Rocco and Michael Tomlinson. This horse has run really well. This was last year. I mean, this horse coming off a little bit of a layoff, and Michael Tomlinson doesn't have the best numbers, but this horse is easily the best closer in the field. Hopefully can show a little bit more speed than she showed against Caravel, but running second, even by almost 2 lengths, even to that by Caravel, in a not very hot pace at a Keeneland track that was not even soft. It was firm back in the fall. I think this horse could really have a shot. Whether she'll be too far back at the quarter pole is obviously a very good conception to have, but it just comes down to the fact of I don't really like any of the speed. And if there's just everyone's just mad dashing for the lead, if there's one horse that can pick up the pieces, I think this is definitely the horse. And Patrick, you have the horse in 3rd. Charlie has her nowhere.
I was going to say though something,
Yeah.
kind of tying to what you said. If you could go down real quick, because I know we'll touch on the 2 because you and I both have the 2, but I want to touch on the 6 for a second. That was kind of the angle that I took with the 6. I mean, because if you look at the figures with the 74 late, while that's nothing crazy compared to a lot of this field, it's solid. And if you look at a lot of the races for spun glass, and again at a price, I don't know if it'll get there, but the angle I kind of took is with an 85 early speed, it's enough where it won't be too far off the pace. And with a 74 late, which again for this field that is so speed heavy, it is, I think, the second best behind the 5, but it has a lot more early speed than the 5. I think this could be a race in terms of at a big price where the 6 could also clean up the pieces, where it won't have to obviously do as much work as the 5 while its kick won't be as good. But again, if there's enough of a hot pace, because you can see something that looks like it's struggled with in the past is there's been a lot of blue figures, meaning the pace has been slow, which doesn't help this horse at all. And you see in the one race where it did have a red figure, it closed and won. So I will say, I do think that's why if you want to look for that angle, I think the 6 is another one to look at where, again, its figures aren't crazy, but it has consistently solid numbers. And again, it's one that's probably going to be stalking. It'll probably be towards the back as well, but has more early pace where it wouldn't be too far back, which is better for a sprint and could also be a horse at a price that could pick up the pieces.
Yeah,
that was my angle, at least with the 6.
Well, right. And if you like the 6, the other thing you'll look at is this horse is most likely going to be ahead of the 5. So I think the 5's a better closer, but the 6 might have position on the 5 going into the
that's
far
what I'm
turn.
saying. Agreed.
And I completely, your point is completely taken. I was just looking for others in this race that, again, because if I'm just going to go through all the horses here and we'll just look at early time form. I mean, the 1 absolutely sending from the rail with 117 early form, trained to Artemis. While I don't think she necessarily needs the lead by any means. She does her best running on or near the front, so she's going to have at least some tactical speed. The 3 is going to drop back, looks kind of slow on paper. The number 4, the Queen, is fast. The number 5, obviously, who I just talked about, and the number 6, as Charlie talked about, they're not going to be towards the front. But then you have the number 8 for Ward, who's going to go.
For sure.
The number 9 is going to go. The 10 is just, I think the 10 is just slow.
The 10 just has no speed. Yeah.
The 10, but the 10 does her best running on the front as well. And then 11 outside for 3 diamonds. Sure. This horse has to go. So, and then I'll get to your point, Steven, in a second, but there's just so many horses that feel like they just have to go to be able to win this race. And when I was looking through the card, I'm just trying to look through, is there a horse I can make a case for that is not going to be part of what is most likely going to be a suicide speed duel? And the 5 has good numbers. That 86 definitely matches up with the other horses in this field. Behind Caravel, nonetheless, if she can come out off the layoff ready, and the workouts would say that, she's running well. And not to mention that last race at Turfway on the synthetic and a cold pace, throw that one out. I'm perfectly fine with that. The 2 numbers at Turf are what I'm looking at. Agreed. I think this horse can definitely be live in this race. Charlie, we're going to go to the 2 here, and then I'll let Patrick talk about the number 4, and then we'll move on. The number 2, the morning line favorite, like I said earlier, I don't think this horse is going to be favored at post time. I think the Wards will definitely get it. This horse definitely has the favorite, yeah. And this horse definitely has the class, but really just, ran well in New York last year, but ran to Keeneland, kind of just ran a dud.
Yeah, that's one for me where I'm not like completely, I guess, throwing it out, but for me, it is one where you can see a lot of the numbers before that. And it's kind of going back to what you and I like, which is Mr. Consistency. And that's what I've been seeing. And my angle with the 2, honestly, that I liked again is it was pretty much the only other speed besides the 9 that has a decent late figure where, again, if it's not absolutely on the lead, it looks like it can be doing its work late. And the way I see it is, again, I think the 2 and the 9 will probably sit just off of the speed that has to go where they have no late figure at all. So they'll be the first ones to get a bite at passing those horses. And then the 6 will probably be the next one because it'll be in that middle pack. And then I think the 5's the only other one that has some late that could get there. I just think it's not long enough for the 5 to get there. I think the 6 could, but as we get to our tickets later, I don't think it will. But that was my angle with why I like the 9 and the 2 the most. It wasn't because I was trying to look for chalk. It wasn't because I was looking for speed because there's a lot of speed. I was looking for which horses, because again, it really has been those horses towards the front that have been winning with the way the track's played. So I was just looking for which speed towards the front has enough late that it looks like it won't run out of gas as soon as we get to the final stretch.
Yeah, and the reason why I have the 2 in second, your points are completely.
And I like Paco as well, obviously.
Yeah, well, I do too, except if he's going to get the lead at the top of the stretch, then I don't like him. But that's the way it goes with Paco. I don't think this horse needs the lead. The 2-hole is definitely not a good. I would definitely like this horse better in a little bit in like 7-8 type post.
Agreed.
But this horse does not need the lead. It's definitely going to be close. But if she can sit like a pocket trip type stuff, this horse is definitely live in my opinion. But just ran a dud last time at Twilight Gleaming. We were at that race. Horse just ran away with it. It wasn't even a contest, really. She never looked like a loser. So, I mean, you can realistically draw a line. You could do what you want with that race, but
the works have also been pretty good.
The works have, ran a bullet at Monmouth last time out. This horse is going to be bet down. Don't know if I trust this horse at like 4-1, but the reason I like her is that, like I said, she doesn't need the lead. And if she can sit a pocket trip, this horse can definitely be live in this race. And then Patrick, again, number 4, Can the Queen, got a lot of love in the chat. Jim giving more crap as usual. But what did you like most about Can the Queen?
Yeah, I really liked her race 2 back. I mean, that race fits firmly into this field. And the way she sat off the pace and pounced, I know the fractions were insane, 21-3 and 44-2. But that was impressive. And that if she can do that in this race, she's got a huge shot, especially because she'll be ahead of the closers. And she's been working fantastic at Laurel. So I really think this horse is due for a bounce back from that 72 buyer in that allowance race.
Yeah, I mean, this is the the hometown horse in this type of race where this horse has only been racing on the Maryland circuit. This horse definitely has a chance. I think I have this horse on while I don't have her in my top 3, I do have her on my ticket. It's just another horse that's going to be close to that type of pace. And this is the same type of trip that the 2's going to get. This horse, I don't think needs the lead by any means. If it's a quick pace in front of her, you can reference back. She has races on her form where she sits back in like that 4th, 5th position and is able to pounce towards the quarter pole. I think this horse is definitely live again for local based connections. I think, this would be a nice feel good story for these connections to win this race. And I think she's definitely got a chance if she can sit off what looks again on paper as a suicidal pace. I'm going 5-9. Patrick is going 9-4-5 and Charlie is going 9-6. Guys, I'm going to switch over the PPs right now. But actually, first off, I wanted to talk about, there's a little bit of type in the chat, Forget the Candy, which is Maker and Saez. Ran a really good race at Gulfstream last time out in the handicap. Fulminate was in that race. I was wondering if that was the race where my horse was in. But she ran a bang up race that last time out. The only problem is on this Pimlico turf, and I threw up a comment from Charles B earlier. That this turf course is really just not kind of outside posts, and a 5 furlong sprint with so much speed on a horse that's going to have to take the 11 draw or mostly the 10 draw, quote unquote, from all the way on the outside to try and clear all these horses, especially the 2 wards that are basically right to her inside. It's going to take a monster effort for this horse to even get to the front, let alone hold on past if they turn up running themselves out at the quarter pole. It's going to take a monster effort for this horse to hold off any closures as well. That's my only gripe with the 11 is the post. I think if this horse was on the inside, more towards the inside, definitely worth more of a look. But the figures fit, especially from that last race, which is really the only figure that fits on the page. And I get it's Maker and Saez, so this horse will probably be bet at least a little bit, but the post really hinders this horse. So we're gonna roll with that, guys. And like I said, I told our top 3 already. Just wanted to touch on Get the Candy before I move on. Next race is race number 10. It is the first graded stake on the card. It is the Miss Preakness Stakes for 3-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And guys, as I bring up the Equibase, I'm looking at it right now. Sorry, I'm pressing a lot of buttons. Again, $150,000, a field of 7 for this one. The morning line favorite, of course, would be the number 2 with a really good looking filly, Key of Life for Flavian Pratt and Brad Coxon. Did anyone take the bold step in it? No, we did not. We actually all have the same exact picks for this race.
I thought it was going to be different with the 4 and 3rd. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I did too, but I guess Rudy Brissett and Irad, but either way, there's definitely two standouts in this race. And Patrick, I went to you first last time. So Charlie, I'll let you talk about Key of Life first. What intrigued? I get this horse is going to be 4-5 and a rightfully deserved 4-5, but what did you like most about Key of Life?
I mean, it just checks off all the boxes for me. The figures are incredible. The works have been solid. I like the trainer jockey combo sticking with the horse. Again, I mean, I know obviously the early pace is incredible and the late's nothing special, but it's certainly good enough that I think this horse can, again, either be on the lead or right behind it and hold up. I also like that as you look with the, as we talked about with the red and blue numbers, that this horse has dealt with hot paces before and has been able to win, which was honestly my main reason I went with it over the 6. Because if you look at the 6, it's only like tough race. Its last race out, it got blue figures. So I think that's a big reason it was able to win by so much, was it was able to set whatever pace it wanted. It also went off as a crazy big favorite at 30 cents on the dollar. So it really hasn't had tough competition. And it's never really had to deal with any sort of, adversity or deal with a race that wasn't set up the way it wanted to go. So that's why I went with the 2, just the strength of schedule, the fact that the horse has been performing incredibly. And again, it's a horse that has shown if it needs to gut out a victory and if it needs to be in a race where it's not going to be an effortless pace where everything goes the way it wants to, it can still find a way to win. Because that is big for me, is you do sometimes see these horses that have dominated all these races, and then the first time they all of a sudden don't just go to the front and be like, oh, shoot, there is somebody with me. I can't just get a free win and set the figures I want. That horse ends up struggling and doesn't like it and can't get the job done. So that was my angle with the 2 over the 6.
Yeah, I mean, this horse is definitely, like I said, the deserving 1-1 favorite. And to your point, I'll let Patrick touch on a little bit, but the strength of schedule is easily harder than any other horse in this race. And she's shown that she can overcome the odds, as Charlie said. Patrick, is that kind of what you saw with Key of Life?
Oh, exactly right. And I hate to put it this way, but I more have a knock on Maple Leaf Mel. The local, Maple Leaf Mel's the local one, New York, racing in New York and stuff like that. But Maple Leaf Mel obviously hasn't faced anybody. But you look at the speed of those races, they're really not what Key of Life has been in. Key of Life has experienced some unbelievable speed, and she's held up on all of it. Maple Leaf Mel has won those races, but they're just not. The races are not run the way I personally think Key of Life has run. And I just think Key of Life is better. Maple Leaf Mel's fantastic. But Key of Life, I just think's a better horse. And if both of them are duking it out, I would take Key of Life.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I completely agree with everything you said. And I don't want to take anything away from Maple Leaf Mel or the connections, because she has shown that, I mean, this horse was the buzz horse, right? Back at Saratoga. Oh, yeah. At the Seek and Annie Stakes. I mean, that horse was coming off. She was like, I didn't think she was like a low morning line. I think she got destroyed.
That's right.
The morning line and just ran off the screen completely. I think that was her. That wasn't the Seek and Annie. That was actually her maiden win
on debut. Yeah, it was the first race of the day. Yep.
And it she was probably like 3-1 on the line or something like that. She got absolutely hammered. All the buzz was on this horse. The only thing that you're gonna have to worry about, realistically, I would say worry about, quote unquote, is the pace situation, but also the fact that she's only been racing with New York bred company. And horses can't. I mean, a horse like Maple Leaf Mel, you can argue that probably won't have a hard time with open company, but it definitely will be harder than these New York stake bred stakes. And that, for those of you that don't know, that is what the FS, Philly restricted and state restricted. So you're just keep an eye out for that. This horse is definitely live. And is she as good as Key of Life? Maybe not. Does she have more upside? I think so. But it's just the better of, they're both speed horses. Maple Leaf Mel's the outside, but do you think Maple Leaf Mel is good enough to get around Key of Life at the quarter pole? Realistically, that's what you're banking on.
Yeah.
But I'm going to talk about the 4 real quick. I think the 4 is just the best closer. I mean, realistically speaking, there's a decent amount of pace in this race. Rudy Brissett, Irad Ortiz ran a great race at Keeneland last time out. This horse has been bet. This horse lost to really good horses at Oaklawn in the slop. Has been working out really well at Keeneland. And just like the first race, if there's a lot of speed, I'm looking for one horse. I'm looking for that one horse that can pick up the pieces if things go awry. And I'm sure that's what you guys all saw with this number 4. And I'll go to Charlie first, but that's what I saw with Afternoon Tea, was it's that horse that if something insane happens and they both run each other out, where's the horse going to come from to pick up the pieces?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say if you could pull up, I think it was Michael's comment about like how he was approaching the race with like single and or using the 2-4. I think this describes the race perfectly. You don't want to go with those two speed horses. You have to pick the one that you like the most, and like it's not even just because the odds, but again because if it's two speed horses, you kind of just got to pick the one that you think would be able to kind of just I guess have more in the tank than the other come the final stretch and get past that quarter pole. And then again, if you do want to not single, though, you just have to find that horse that can pick up the pieces. And for me, the only one, because I mean, like you look, the 3-horse also closes a little, but I just don't think the 3 is enough early speed. I think it'll have too much to make up. So I think the 4 really is the only angle. I think, like Michael said, what you have to do in this race is either single the 2 or single the 6. Or if you're not going to single it, then you got to pick one of them with the 4 because you just got to basically say which of these speed horses do I have more belief in. And then the only horse that can close while also having enough early speed that it won't be off the screen and actually can get there in time realistically is the 4. So that would be the only angle if you don't single, in my opinion. I agree with Michael completely. Is it has good works, it's ran decent races, it has IRAD. So if you're looking for an angle for a horse that won't be too far behind and could pick up the pieces if they just push each other too hard, I think the 4 is the only horse you could argue for.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely other horses that have a decent lace pace figure, but realistically, to me, it like the 3 has a decent lace pace, just seems slow on paper.
Agree. That's what I'm
And
saying.
then the 1 is going to go. Realistically, yeah, the 4 was my only horse that I could go with underneath. The thing is that if the two of the basically, in my opinion, what I think the way the betting's going to go, I think if you beat Keel Life in this race, your pick 5 goes up immediately, like exponentially goes up.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
Maple
Even
Leaf
if
Mel,
Maple Leaf
obviously, yeah, that's what I mean. I think Keel Life's probably going to be 4-5. Maple Leaf Mel maybe 2-1. And I mean, I would be surprised if she goes to 5-2, but actually maybe not. Maybe like 2-1, 5-2, and then
I don't think
after
you're
somewhere
gonna get
around the
8-1
6-1. Yeah, I would say 6-1 or so. I think people are just going to see the speed angle, but for me, I'm including the other 2, and I get what Michael and Charlie are saying, but we'll get to the ticket structure later as well. But I'm including both the 6 and the 4 for the sole fact that if either one of them wins, my ticket's going up exponentially, and I have a single who I thought was a better chance to win while still getting good value on that horse later in the card. So, and I'm going to try to beat Keel Life here. If I lose, I just lose. It is what it, or I'm not going to lose, but if Keel Life wins, I'll take it, but it's obviously not going to be a big payout. But that's my thinking at least. It's kind of just like the one heavy favorite that you think might be a little bit vulnerable. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't really think there's anything else we need to say about this race. The same race is pretty clean cut. The horses otherwise either are on the lead, and I would rather have the 2 or the 6, or they just seem really just kind of slow on paper, realistically. I don't even have to go through them. Patrick, Charlie, and myself are all going 2-6-4 in this spot. Guys, I'm going to bring up the 11th race. This is the other listed stake on the card. It is the Hilltop Stakes for $100,000 as I bring up the Equibase here. Philly's 3 years old, going 1 mile on the turf. It is a full field of 12 for the gang, and if it is a fun race, and the morning line favorite is the number 1 Breath Away for Joel Rosario and Christophe Clement. The rail for this horse is going to be, I think, a little bit of an issue, but we'll call it like it is. All of us, I know for a fact, all of us have the number 1 on top, but a little bit of diversity underneath. I don't have both Patrick and Charlie have the 8 underneath. I don't have the 8. Charlie and I
Kyle,
go
you have
7.
The 7? No, that was supposed to be my
I have the
pick.
7
oh
in
my
second.
God.
And I have the 3 when Patrick has the 2. So we're pretty diversified underneath, but all on top, we are all going with the number 1 Breath Away. Again, for Clement and Rosario. Patrick, you are first, my friend. What did you like most about Breath Away?
Yeah, Breath Away's late kick took the breath away from me. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's stupid. No, listen, that Sanibel Island race was very, very impressive. Even with the speed figures that came back with the pace of 24 and 48, the way Breath Away, had that late kick coming and closing and finding a seam with Jose Ortiz. I know obviously gets Joel this time. That's not a knock. Just very, very impressive. And even you look back on the synthetic Horse got out of the gate slow, had to steady a couple times, was at one point in like the 7 path out wide, had ultra excuses on the synthetic that day. I think this horse is just loaded for a very big performance. And Christophe Clement's got another turf runner in his barn that's getting ready to go for the summertime.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it's I'm gonna play the replay real quick. Breath Away, I believe, is it's number 5 in this race, so she's all the way back off the screen at this point. Come to mention, this is a Gulfstream turf course that I'm gonna talk while it plays, but this is a turf course that really did not play well to it really hasn't played well to closers.
Yeah.
It was fair
No,
when
I can tell you that.
It was fair when it first came out, like the new turf course they started running on the early championship meet. But as it became, there was really no rain, as it became more and more firm. They just really were just going on the front end. And I know it says hot pace, but realistically, they're going 24 flat and 48 and 1. I mean, it's not the fastest pace by any means. And you'll see the 5 start to make her move here, and you'll see her just start to weave through horses. You'll see her cut through inside there, and she's just going to explode through in between horses. It just, to me, this is a massive effort from this horse. And you'll see she finally gets in the clear, and look at her just absolutely explode away. Like that for me is a turn of foot that I love to see in these turf horses, especially on a turf course that was not favoring closers in any way, shape, or form. The thing is that she's going to probably have to have a same type of trip like that coming from the rail. She's going to have to get room. But if what's it called? If Joelle can get her to the outside towards the top of the stretch, I understand the point that Joelle really has not been riding well, and that point is completely correct in my opinion. But I just think this horse, I think she is a ton of horse, and if Joelle can just get her in the clear, get her to have that turn of foot, I think she's really, really dangerous in this spot. I don't think she's a single by any means, but definitely worth the favoritism, and in my opinion, definitely worth my top pick in this race. Charlie, I will let you talk about the number 8 next. I don't have this horse anywhere, so you guys, this is the Chad Brown horse coming from Keeneland last time in the $100,000 main special weight. Charlie, tell me why I'm wrong and why Up and Down is a good play underneath.
Oh, I just want to give Patrick a second because Patrick, I mean, I might be wrong. Do you want to add something real quick on the 1 before I touch on the 8?
Well, the one thing I just wanted to say, just to go off Kyle's point, the thing that impressed me too about Breath Away is, how, gets the rail, watching the horse going down the lane late and going through horses and not going outside. That's what sparked me and said, you know what? This horse having the rail is not the worst thing in the world. Is it a negative? Sure. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that this horse went through other horses and split them rather than had to cut outside and get the late kick. That's the only thing I wanted to say.
Sorry, I think the 1's very dangerous. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. Sorry, Patrick, that I didn't give you.
You're good. You're all good.
There, but
just
Charlie,
the host
go ahead.
Doing his job.
Yeah, it is usual. You know me how it goes.
No, that's why we have co-hosts. I saw while Kyle was doing his thing.
Yeah, just calling me garbage. It's fine. It is what it is. Charlie, what do you like the 8?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, again, love Chad Brown. And yeah, for this horse, honestly, the angle that I kind of took was it's a horse with a little more pace, but has, again, as we kind of talked about with some other races, enough late speed where maybe if anything goes wrong with Breath Away, whether it's a tough trip or somehow gets too far back and can't make up the ground in time, I just think Up and Down is going to get a really good trip in this field. And I just think, again, with the 87 early and the 72 late, it's one that clearly doesn't have to be off on the lead. It can sit right off the pace behind those speed horses. And again, something that has just proven to be winning a lot at tracks everywhere lately has been those horses where they're the first ones that get a crack at the early speed. And, they're the first ones off the turn that have that kick to see what happens. And I don't know, that's why I like Up and Down in the spot. I don't think you're getting this price. I also think you might get a better price on the 1. I just think for a field this big where there's so many horses that have a realistic chance, I think you'll get better than 2-1. And I don't think you're going to get 6-1 on a Chad Brown horse that is coming off of a very solid effort last time out. I think this one will probably be closer to 4-1, maybe 9-2, but I don't think you're getting 6-1. And I think Up and Down could be dangerous in this spot.
Yeah, these Chad horses are always going to be bet, especially on these big days where these people are, obviously this is Friday, not Saturday, but these bigger days, Chad Brown and Pletcher and all these guys are going to be bet down. I agree with like the 9-2 aspect. She has a lot of upside. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know how good this horse really is. And granted, off the bench, this horse ran a big one against maidens, but you look at the next these horses. I looked at the next buyer outs. The maximum uptick was 9, and that horse won at a $30,000 claimer on the dirt. So, I mean, granted, I'll never let myself get beat by Chad Brown. I definitely have this horse on my ticket, but I just don't really know how good this horse is. And there could be for me, this is a horse that's going to do similar to what the number one's going to do. I get the one's going to be a little bit farther back, but in the head-to-head matchup, I would much rather have the 1 in this spot than the 8. And at 9-2, there might be other ways to go for your underneath plays, but the 8s, look, I'm never going to play against Chad Brown in a day like this. I don't mind the 8 whatsoever. Patrick, do you have anything to add on the 8 before I move on?
No, to be honest with you, I did see that that maiden race, Keelan came back, kind of bad. But I also like to look at the fact that how the horse won. I mean, the horse sat pretty much right on the pace. I know was in third and was decently back, but I mean, the horse just pounded coming down the stretch, and I really liked that late kick. And so I think if the horse can stalk and pounce at not being too far off the pace, I think the horse has a good shot. Now, we have to wonder if this horse is as good as Breathaway or whoever else we like in this race.
Yeah, and look, I calm down, chat. Calm down, Howard. Calm down, Michael. I have her in my top 3. I will get to a spray in a second. I like a spray more than I like up and down for reasons that I'll touch on in a little bit. But the breeding of up and down looks good. I just Kitten's Joy, Giants Causeway. I just don't know how good this horse is, and that race coming up pretty light is not a good look for me. But I will not let Chad beat me in a sequence like this. I'm going to talk about, or actually, Charlie, I'll let you talk about the number 7 because I have this horse in second before I have this horse in third. Stidham Gaffleone ran a pretty decent race last time at Fairgrounds. Again, losing to horses like Chop Chop. I mean, we all thought how good that horse was going to be. Talk about a little bit of a dud, but what did you like most about Hang the Moon?
Yeah, so the angle I took with Hang the Moon, I mean, again, I think with Michael Stidham and Tyler Gaffleone with those connections, I don't think there's any way you're getting 12-1 on this horse. But yeah, the angle that I kind of took is, again, you're seeing a lot more progression. The last 2 buyers are a lot more respectable than the first 3 efforts. Kind of big, not a huge gap, but a decent gap between its last 2 efforts. So I do like that they're bringing the horse back out again and not trying to be waiting too long in between. And yeah, my kind of thought process with Hang the Moon was, I like the late figures. I think this is another one that could be running hard late. I think the struggle that the 7 may have to deal with is I think Breathaway is the better closer, and it's going to be one of those kind of, I know it's nothing like Wet Paint at all. These are nowhere near that quality, but kind of like when we had talked about Wet Paint on a different episode, where it's if you're a horse that likes to close and there's other closers, how you kind of have to make sure you're ahead of them because if you're closing with them, you're not going to catch them. So I do think Hang the Moon is going to have to make sure it's got enough space ahead of the 1 where if it chooses to close, it actually can, because if it's anywhere near the 1, the 1's just going to blow by. I don't think it has the same kick as the 1. But again, the angle I kind of took as is I think this is a horse that 100% can get in the exactas or trifectas at a great price. Will the 7 win? Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't seem likely, but I do think it's one of those, the long shot candidates that certainly can. And it's kind of like you always touch on. I think it's a horse where you shouldn't really talk someone off having faith in a 12-1 to potentially have a shot in this field.
And you touched on my point that I think in a realm of where you're looking for underneath horses, I think the 7 is a much better candidate at 12-1 to get into the money. I'm not saying the 8's not going to get in the money, but at a horse like the 8 who has upside, but the figures look a little slow at 9-2 versus the 7 who has a little bit better figures,
9-1, 10-1,
and probably around that 10-1 mark. That's all I'm saying. That's why I have the number 7 in second. I think just going to run a very similar race to the 8, but if the 7 can catch the jump or get a better clear run, I think the 7 is definitely interesting for sure. All right, chat. Calm down. I will talk about the 3 right after the 2. Patrick, you have the number 2 in third. Aunt Shirley, Pletcher, Windstar, Irad. I mean, ran an 82 last race. Once Pletcher got her, I mean, there's not too much else to say, really.
Yeah, no, I think this horse could improve off that last race. Got bumped a couple times and just was a weird race, just kind of a weird race, and has been working fantastic. Obviously, Irad picks it up, and first time Lasix for this horse, which I think might help. This horse might run a big race and could be on the lead, and you never know. Irad, take him all the way, bud.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a horse. There's definitely speed in this race as well.
Yep.
Again, on paper, until every race that we touch on here that we say, oh, hot pace, they're going to go 24-4, and it's going to be ridiculous. But and surely, look, she survived a really quick pace last time at Gulfstream. But again, that's that same race we watched with Breath Away, that 24 flat, 48 from 1. I mean, that's really not that slow. And it's it's a constant pace. It's not like they sped up in the second half, the second quarter mile, excuse me. But I mean, she could be good enough if this horse gets a clear run. Justify usually doesn't like the type of distance, especially on the turf. I mean, obviously this horse has Frankel breeding, so I wouldn't be worried about that too much. But there's just different alternatives to a horse, again, that's probably going to be bet down somewhere in that 6-1, 5-1, 4-1 type of range. And I could easily look for horses otherwise. If I like Breath Away on top, I'd look other places to create a little bit of value for myself. But the 2 is definitely interesting. Now, guys, the three is where I want to bring up. And Howard took every single bit of my thunder that I had on this horse. I even put notes on this horse in front of me here, and he took every single thing I had away from me. She got a dream trip, but did come home in 23-3, which is what I was going to show. The incremental pace for Formulator. If you don't use Formulator, I highly recommend it. She came home way faster than anybody else. She ran a big gallop out. I will play the replay right now. And I'll skip ahead to literally just to the top of the stretch. Just sprays the number 1 here on the inside. You'll see she gets on the rail the entire way. Look for a way. Which reminds me a lot of Otago, to be honest. But she's going to get clear running. They drop back. Top of the stretch. Just is able to power through. You'll see once she starts kicking into high gear is when this horse really just starts to pull away. She gets the stick and just absolutely flies by the 7 on the inside. You can argue again at Tampa, who did she really beat? But she does it really well. And then as she gallops out here, you can see, her ears are up. She's ready to keep going. I mean, everyone is 5, 6, 7, 8 lengths behind her. So if you're a gallop out person, this is easily a really good one to notice. This horse has no problem with going longer. From the 3-hole, I don't see her necessarily getting a different trip by any means either. So if she gets that same trip, which she definitely can with a little bit of tactical speed, the number 3 is definitely dangerous for sure. The 11 we'll look at. I'm with
also,
what?
I was gonna ask if we could touch on the 10 for like 1 second because I saw somebody else also mention the 10. I was gonna say real quick, I do think the 10's another one with an interesting look. I really like the 10's last effort off of obviously a huge layoff, waiting to bring it back to respond that well at a price. I think Jim had mentioned the 10 as a horse that he liked. That's why it made me remember. Works have been decent. Again, I also just like the crazy pace, early pace, obviously of 122, but a very respectable 65 late, which again, this could be one where if it can get to the lead and use that outside gate to its advantage to get to the front, I don't necessarily think this will be one where it'll get to the front and then just gas out right away. I mean, it went a mile on the turf and was able to hold pretty comfortably before. So I think the 10 is an underrated horse that I'm not saying it'll necessarily win, but another one, if you're looking for a horse that maybe kind of the reverse trip of the 7 where it's able to hold up long enough to finish towards the front, I think the 10 is another horse to highly consider in your exactas and trifectas at a price. And I do think it's an underrated horse that, again, the figures aren't anything spectacular by any means, but again, it was its first race off a massive layoff and looked like a completely different horse. If it takes another step forward with being very lightly run, this horse could be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, this horse was favored off of that big layoff as well. So this horse, I agree with you, Charlie. To me, again, it's just other horses are in speed in this race. And when, facing the 10 versus the 2 in a type of race like this, I'd rather have the 2 coming from the inside. But your point is definitely taken in this race. I want to put up Heinz Buck. Thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. We give out caveman tickets on this show, but if you want the ABC tickets for Friday, that will be on the power picks. And as I touched on at the very beginning of the show, that is patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. And it's only $15.99 a month, $4 a weekend. Howard and the guys will put out their entirety of the late pick 5 grids, ABC grids on that. So if you're looking for ABC picks, that is the place to go. We'll touch on the 11 real quick, guys. I'll just go and we got to move on. But this is another horse that in a lot of speed, this horse is being gunning from the outside. It's a pretty decent run to the first turn, but Louis Saiz is going to have to be really aggressive on this horse to be able to clear a horse like, let's just go back through him again from the number 10 right to her inside. Then you have the number, the 8 who wants to be forwardly placed. Then you have the 5 who has to go. This horse looks extremely slow on paper and never even been on the turf, but that's a completely different story. But that horse has to go. The number 4, most likely going to want to be towards the front as well. The 2 absolutely is going. So this horse has speed to navigate to her inside. If she can get clear for sure, but I don't know. She got a really good trip in the Appalachian, just could not get there. And I get that's a much tougher spot than this, but from that outside post, I would much rather have another horse like the 2 gunning to the lead than the 11 who has to navigate a trip from that wide outside draw. That is complete. That is my talking on the 11. But this horse, Jonathan Thomas has also been a little bit quiet as of the recent Keeneland meet and forward, but the horse is definitely worth a look for sure. I'm going 173. Patrick's going 182, and Charlie's going 187. Guys, moving on real quick here because I want to have enough time to talk about the Black Eyed Susan, which is obviously the featured race of this card. Race 12, as I switch to the Equibase right now, is the other grade 3 on the card. It is the Pimlico Special, and this race is a field of 8, but man, there are some really nice horses in this field. The morning line favorite is the number 2, Rattle and Roll, who ran an absolutely massive race at Keeneland last time, and I think this horse is finally starting to find his feet as a 4-year-old. The second choice is number 5, Law Professor, who's a very nice horse in his own right, and the number 3, Clapton, comes in at your third favorite. And as I switch the picks right now, 2 of us have Rattle and Roll on top, but one of us, my friend, as always, is the man out. You, my friend, are going first. Number 5, Law Professor, Rob Atras, Manny Franco. What did you like the most about Law Professor?
Yeah, so my angle with Law Professor was to kind of do the reverse of what my angle normally is. Typically in pretty much any race, but especially these longer races, I always tend to try to go for the closers. But the angle I kind of took is when I looked at these horses, there really wasn't – I appreciate that, Jim, also. I do agree with you on that. I think I am decently smart, man. But sorry, going back to my pick.
Whatever.
So the reason I like Law Professor outside of the name, because I might go to law school, the angle I kind of just took is I don't really see anybody that's going to give the 5 any real difficulty on the lead. I just think that the 2 is going to be coming late, and I do think the 2 is a great horse, but I see a lot of horses in this field that I thought were interesting that are going to be trying to close late. I just don't really see who's going to give the 5 any trouble. Now, I know this is obviously a longer race, so being the main speed horse isn't, as beneficial as if it's a shorter race, but that's just kind of the angle I went with. Is I just think once we get to that final turn, in terms of the horses that are actually going to be legit contenders to win this race, I think the 5 is going to be the only one towards the front, and all the other contenders are going to be going at the – no, I think the 7 will as well. I just don't think the 7 is going to be able to hold up the same way that I think the 5 will. I think obviously the 114 early speed is great, but so is the 92 late. And you look at its last race where it was right towards the lead and then was able to run away pretty easily last time out in a very respectable race. That's just kind of the angle I see for this 5 horse in this race too. I just think that the closers aren't going to get there, and I think the 5 is going to have enough in the tank to run away late.
Yeah, and look, Law Professor is easily one of the classiest horses in this field. You just take a look back. Woodward, Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, San Pasqual when he used to run in California, the Oaklawn Mile. Obviously didn't run very well that day, but still, it's just this was been running against a very tough competition, and absolutely blew it out of the water last time at Aqueduct. I have this horse second. Patrick, you have this horse second as well. I have really nothing else to touch on. Charlie hit on it all, but did you have anything to add before we move on to our top pick?
No, nothing really. I just feel like it sounds kind of like, I don't know. This horse just has faced greater and everything, and I just feel like is just the horse's class, like you said, and is just going to face better in most races and just, hit the money in most of every race, just not get to the top of its class. But hey, listen, I'll let you start out with Rattle and Roll, but I just think Law Professor is a little notch below.
Yeah, I mean, notch below, whatever you say, but he's definitely a horse, and he's definitely to be considered in a spot like this.
Yeah.
Let me just go through the horses real quick. Again, I feel like I do this every race, but Kuenzel, Rail, definitely going, in my opinion. Rattle and Roll, no speed. Clapton's going to sit back as well. Armando R is going to sit back. Law Professor is going to go. Crook Creek's going to sit in the middle. Speed Bias has to go. And Keystone Field has to go. There's going to be speed for Rattle and Roll to chase. And as I stated early when talking about this race, I think this horse is really starting to find his footing. I think in the New Orleans Classic, I think he needed a race. And Wessel and Power, Art Collector, they were all towards the front as I bring up just the chart. I mean, you can see Art Collector was third. West Willpower was second. Treasury, who was the cheap speed in that race, fell back at the end there. But Rattle and Roll didn't really have a chance to close into that race. Also think he needed a race, came back in the Ben Ali and absolutely never looked like a loser from like the turn on. He just absolutely powered past everybody. I did not try Howard, like I said, another power pick score for the guys. Was a top choice pick in the power picks because Howard not only gives out his grids, as I stated, he gives out a bunch of spot plays and everything like that on horses at prices that he loves. And the Rattle and Roll was a good 3-1 score for Howard and the guys. But will he win again on Friday? I think so. I think there's plenty of speed for him to chase. I think he continues to improve. Another low 100 buyer here. I think this horse is definitely live, Patrick.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not going to say this horse is going to do better than he did in the Ben Ali, but Rattle and Roll is loaded for this race and just is going to sit right off this pace and pounce. I just think, obviously he's going to be the clear-cut favorite. The horses are going to go to the lead knowing there's the favorite there, and I just think this is the perfect spot for Rattle and Roll. And, Kenny McPeak is solid in placing his horses in right spots. And I think this is a great, great spot for Rattle and Roll.
Absolutely, fully agree with everything you just said. I think after winning the Ben Ali, I think Kenny McPeak looked at this exact spot, knew that this horse was going to run well. It's another mile in the 3/16th race, which, like I said, absolutely wiped the floor with the Ben Ali field at Keeneland. I think this horse has everything going for him and is definitely going to be a force to reckon with on Friday. Now we're all over the place. I'm surprised no one has Clapton, but I will get into that in a second. Charlie, I'll let you talk first on the horse that you have in third. Cook Creek, Jeremiah Dwyer for Rosario. Ran a good race at Keeneland last time, but just couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, its last two efforts are good. It beat Clapton 2 back. I mean, my angle with Cook Creek, honestly, was for me, I think this really is a 2-horse race between the 2 and the 5. I think it's kind of just the angle of, do you think the 5's able to stay up ahead enough that the 2 can't get there, or does the 2 wipe past them all? And my angle, honestly, was just kind of trying to see if I was trying to find anybody else at a price. I just kind of liked what I saw from the 6 as a horse that kind of sits off the pace, but not too far off. If you look in its last 2 races, it was 2 lengths and 2.5 lengths and 1 length off the lead. So the 6 usually doesn't sit too far. And I was just looking for a price, to be honest with you. I mean, I know Joel Rosario hasn't been running great, but Joel did run really well with this horse last time out. And again, my angle is if I really like the 2 and 5 and think it's a 2-horse race, if I'm looking for a horse in my exactas and trifectas underneath, why not go for a horse at 10-1 that'll probably go off, I think, even a little higher than that maybe, because I think there's going to be a lot of money on 2, 5, and 3. And try to look for that price, then go for the 3 that I think maybe will end up going off closer to like kind of how you talked about on an earlier race with why you didn't like the Chad Brown as much as that other horse. That was my thought process with the 6. Look for a bigger odd horse that has had some respectable races in its last 2 that are good enough to finish about third in this field, and just look for a good price under the 2 or the 5.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the 295s are definitely jump out on this horse's page. I just don't know necessarily if this horse classes up. I mean, you could tell that this horse is really well meant. Excuse me, back in the day. I mean, this horse was the Nashville, the Withers, the Peter Pan. Ran well in the Nashville, but didn't run well in either the latter 2 I mentioned. But this horse was well meant. And if this horse can class up, this horse definitely has a little bit of a chance, definitely to finish underneath. But I mean, to face horses like Rattle and Roll and Law Professor, I just not necessarily know if this horse is going to class up to beat horses like those. But for your exactas and trifectas, this horse definitely has a chance to get into those. I agree. I have the number 7 Speed Bias. Coming from Oaklawn, and again, softer spots, but I don't think distance necessarily hurts this horse too much. I mean, Uncle Mo, Malibu Moon Mare. I don't think the breeding says distance, and this horse will probably just be sitting off the pace, probably pressing. And if Saez is going to be aggressive on this horse, if he can keep him up, at the top of the stretch and just, finish third to Law Professor and Rattle and Roll, I think that's a good result for this horse. Coming off a 99 at Oaklawn, I get in a softer spot, but that was to Smile Happy in his return race. So losing by 1 1/4 to Smile Happy, I think that this horse could definitely be interesting underneath, especially in third, for Size being aggressive. What's up, Patrick?
Yeah, I was eyeing Speed Bias too in my third spot. The thing that killed me was Ron Marquette's numbers this year. They're just not very good. But listen, he picks a good spot for this horse, and you never know. And that's why I like the 8 Keystone Field. I just don't understand why they ran him in the Fort Marcy at Belmont. It just kind of didn't make sense. The horse just was running solid on dirt, and so we'll see how this horse comes back. But it just it was just an interesting idea by Maker to run that horse, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm laughing at the O'Connor, the O'Connor, the HHH Racing Podcast legend O'Connor.
Oh boy!
But
yeah,
I was laughing at that. But yeah, that was a fun one. I even had that horse too. That was a little bit rough, but. For the Keystone Field, for me, I understand it's Maker, and I'm never going to question Maker's decisions, but I agree with you. I have no idea why this horse was in the Fort Marcy, and then quick turnaround back to this race. It almost seems like this race was the original plan for this horse, but then they saw an opportunity come up in the Fort Marcy, ran realistically just horribly. There's no other way to put it. Horse ran horribly on turf last time too, or this horse he's 8. So this horse has good numbers on turf before, but recently really been running well in the dirt, as you said. Even throwing in the Razorback handicap. Like I don't understand the spot picking for this horse. So that's why I left this horse off my ticket. But
the only plus I see is picking up Tyler Gaffleone, obviously, is decent rider upgrade. But yeah, I don't know with this horse either. I did look at it, but I just couldn't. I'd rather just look at a horse like the 6 and kind of bank on upside and see if it could step up than a horse where it's faced class and just hasn't shown anything.
Yeah, and I completely agree with all of you guys. I want to talk about Clapton here. And again, the boss needs to be quiet in the chat because he's stealing all my notes in front of me. I have my phone in front of me and I have all my notes written. There's a reason I don't like Clapton in this race. I don't think this horse wants the distance. And I think even adding more distance, I get he ran extremely well last time in the Ghost Zapper. Again, against HHH Racing Podcast legend O'Connor. I just don't think this horse is going to want the extra distance, even though he ran a good race last time. You can look back. I mean, a mile and 16th, it lost by a half length to Super Corinto. I don't like at a 62 claimer. I was 62 optional claimer at Gulfstream, and then the other times it's come back race at a mile and 16th. It just seems like this horse just kind of gives up at that mile type of. This seems like a good 1-turn mile, 7 furlong type horse to me at least. I just don't see the extra distance for this horse, and that's why this horse is off my ticket. I think there's horses like the 6 or the or the 7 that are horses that can have a better chance coming underneath than a horse that I have a lot of questions on, primarily in the distance route, no pun intended. But that's my thinking on Clapton. I could definitely be wrong. This horse is going to be bet. This horse can win if it continues to improve off that last Gulfstream race. But personally, I don't see the extra distance for this horse, but could be completely wrong. But I'm going to stick to my guns here. We're going to get to the Black Eyed Susan now, guys, as I want to spend extra time on that race. Then we'll get to our pick 5 tickets. I'm going 257. Patrick's going 258. And Charlie is going 526. Guys, the next race is the featured race on Friday. It is The Preakness Stakes for the girls, as they say, it is the Black-Eyed Susan Grade 2 going 1 mile and an eighth on the dirt for 300,000. Full field of 12, as opposed to the guys, as Howard and them will talk about tomorrow, that did not come up a full field of 12. The morning line favorite is the number 9, the undefeated Faiza, for Bob Baffert and Flavian Pratt. And as I switch to the picks, all right, in the chat, real quick, guys, I want to wrong layout, but I want to check with you guys right now. How many people? I did this last week too, and it might be a concurrent reoccurring segment on the channel. Is Howard, singles on this show? How many people do you think went with Faiza in this race? What? At least one person went with Faiza. I guarantee that. 1, 2, or 3. How many people do you think went with Faiza in this race on top? We'll all have her underneath if they don't have her on top. How many people do you think have Faiza on top? 1, 2, or 3? I'm going to give the chat a second. So Michael Austin says 9. Howard says everyone. Jeffrey says all 3. Michael says 2 out of 3 on top. I'll give it a little bit of it. Kyle for sure. Everyone. Ooh, Jim,
Kyle for sure.
Do I have a banger for you, my friend Jim? It is 2. It is not me. Out of everyone, I know everyone's like, oh my God, is super shocked. Everyone's I am the only one that does not have Faiza on top. I went with the number 4, Merlaza, for Cox and Giroux on top, but Patrick and Charlie both have Faiza on top. And look, I have nothing against Faiza. Faiza is definitely the horse to beat in this race. Ran amazing at Santa Anita, ships east for the first time. And see, all you people, Kyle's a given. Kyle for sure. Screw you guys.
I think he picked against Faiza just for you guys. Just for you guys.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just to do this one bit, I picked against Faiza.
I think Kyle might have secretly swapped picks with me or Patrick and just put his name next to it just so he can say he is not the favorite. That's what I think happened.
Kyle not picking a morning line favorite. Someone. Am I fevering? What do I have?
And I'm very proud of him for choosing the second choice in this race. It must have been very difficult to have to go all the way out to number 2.
It would have been, especially since the second choice that's going to win that you don't have in your top 3.
But I have another ticket when we get there. Don't worry, I like the 4 as well.
But that's how Kyle does this. It's not like he doesn't even have Faiza on his ticket. He'll have Faiza with just one other horse.
Well, yeah, of course. Look, we'll get to it in a second. But the one thing I do want to touch on first, someone said it was Michael Austin says Faiza is the goods. I have Miracle as a B. There is one issue with that, and this came out today at 11 a.m. We have decided to scratch Miracle from the Black-Eyed Susan and run her in the Bowery at Belmont. So
no, I think the 6 was on my ticket.
Numbers. Yeah, the 6 is on your ticket, Charlie. Send me in the private chat what horse you want instead. But the number 6 will not be running, I believe.
You can swap it with the 4. I was between putting the 6 or 4 in third. So for everybody watching live that can see it, just assume the 6 has a 4 now that I know the 6 is out.
Okay. Yeah, but the number 6 Miracle will not be running on Friday. That obviously is a big blow to Pletcher and Irad and all them, but that is number 6 again. Miracle is not running. So I am 986. You wanted the 4, Charlie, right? I will switch that now. But Patrick, I will let you talk about Faiza first. I mean, look, there's not too much to say about this horse. She's undefeated, has the top buyer in the field, bet down every single time. Baffert chips her over east for the first time, picks up Pratt. But again, what do you like most about Faiza?
Like you said, shipping in for the first time, hasn't really faced much in California, but obviously has been very impressive in every race. The thing that gets me with this horse, and it's just so impressive, is that she can win from off the pace. She does not have to be on the lead. And that was my number one thing when I thought about Faiza was, was this a typical Baffert's going to have to get to the lead and just go and run them off their feet? That's not the case with Faiza at all. She can stalk and pounce if she has to. Yeah. And I just think she's going to have her way. Whatever way she wants to do it, Flavian can choose. A great rider, as obviously.
And you'll see, don't want me to interrupt you, but you'll see she's on the outside of the 3 right now. You can see she made a big middle move. The 2 went straight 90-1, went straight up to the lead, set a massively fast pace out there. You can see she just absolutely drops anchor here. But to a really nice horse and clearly unhinged, sees her eye to eye and just, I mean, does absolutely blows by her, Patrick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just completely blows by her. It's like, me and Charlie racing and running and me just blowing. No, it's unbelievable that the way Faiza can just take that last gap and just fly. And I just think ultra impressive. And that's the typical Baffert trained horse in the stretch, just flying away from others.
Yeah, I mean, look, she wins geared down by 6 1/4. Like, there's absolutely nothing to say more about this horse realistically, unless Charlie, you have something to add. But Faiza is easily a deserving 7-5 favorite, most likely be near the 1-1 line. And if she continues to improve, I mean, there's realistically no catching her in this race.
No, the only thing I was going to say about the 9, which is kind of against it, which we'll go into when we get to the tickets. I get that it's Baffert and has all the goods, but the figures until the last race aren't necessarily that crazy to me. And again, I do sometimes think that these California horses tend to, be better in California than coming over. And kind of as the boss man was touching on, and so was Daniel, who, as Howard said, I think is also new because I don't think I've seen Daniel before. So thank you for stopping by. But I think Daniel provided, if you can pull up his comments, some great insight that they aren't usually the strongest horses necessarily. So I do think that the 9 is a beatable favorite for sure. It's great. I don't think the horse has done anything wrong, but I don't think the horse is completely unbeatable, as the odds might suggest.
I agree with you, Charlie. And obviously I don't have the horse on top, but and again, maybe Daniel, again, thanks so much for joining the show, my man. Are you reading my notes too? Because I swear to God, everyone's reading my notes. This is the chat's just smart. Again, we have a very eloquent chat here, but my God, people, let me have my thunder for a second.
We're having some really in-depth comments tonight that are really breaking down the race.
And like I said, the thing is,
they're starting to take our jobs.
I know. I mean, that's exactly what I have written down. Is I don't know how good the California 2-year-old or the California fillies really are. And obviously Faiza is easily the best out of all of them. As of right now, she's shown it time and time again. But I think shipping over here for the first time, she does not have works over the track. Bob just shipped her here. I think it was a few days ago, and this horse is going to run in 2 days. I think if there's a spot to beat Faiza, if she wins, I mean, she's definitely deserves all the praise to her. But if there's any time to beat her, I think this is the spot. And I'm going to show why I like the number 4 the most, Merlaza, for Cox and Giroux on top. I get the figures are slower than the 9. Charlie touched on, I think the Santa Anita track is very quick. And they tend not to say they inflate buyers by any means, because that's definitely not the case, but the track is very fast, and horses coming over to the East Coast might not like a course that's a little bit deeper, such as Keeneland or Pimlico or stuff like that. I'm going to show the replay right now for Merlaza, who came home in 24-1 on a short stretched race. At the mile that she ran here is a short stretch, so you'll see them kind of move early on the turn. Merlaza is the number 2, I believe, kind of just stuck in between here. Okay. I just want to make sure that was right. She's stuck in between a little bit here in a really kind of not weird spot, but I mean, you have to make a decision right now. Is what do you want to do with this horse, especially coming with the short stretch here? You'll see she starts to make her move, gets a little bit bottled up here. I think it's not a bad trip by any means, but it's not a good trip by any means. You see she'll finally tip out to the stretch here, and short stretch, watch her get a crack of the whip here. You'll see she'll finally get one. It's right here, and just look at her absolutely just explode. Wow. And that turn of foot to me on the dirt, especially for a horse that was in a little bit of a weird spot to a shorter stretch, might add, a 16th shorter stretch, to have that turn of foot on the dirt. You can argue that, who knows who she beat in a listed stake at Oaklawn, but with a heavy favorite that has a little bit too many question marks for me, I'm going to have Faiza on my ticket. But with that turn of foot on the dirt with the scratch of Miracle hurts a little bit, because Miracle is definitely going to inject a little bit of more pace into this race. But if this horse can sit just off the top flight and be able to pounce, I think she's very, very live in this spot. And if I get anywhere near 5-1, a win bet is definitely getting put on. If I get beat by Faiza, you just get beat by the better horse, and that's the way it is. But as I touched on before, and as Charlie touched on, and as Daniel touched on in the chat, if there's any spot I see to beat Faiza, I think this is the spot to do it. And I understand, Jeffrey, your comment now that you might not even get the 4-1 on this horse, which is definitely possible. I think Faiza is going to take, I think she's going to go even below that morning line odds. I think she's going to be 1-1, if not even lower than 4-5. And when a horse is 4-5, you're going to get inflated odds on everybody else. And whether it's 4-1, 5-1, whatever you get on Merlaza, I think 4-1, 5-1 is fair odds. I would give it, I give it 9-2. 9-2 is my fair odds on this horse. If this horse is above 9-2 at post time, a win bet will be on this horse for me. So I just think, like I keep saying, if there's one place to beat her, this is it. We all have, Charlie and I, we actually have the same horse in second and third, the number 8, Balpool. This is Rob Atras, Manny Franco. I mean, look, she's done absolutely nothing wrong. The question is, from that Laurel and Aqueduct form, does she class up into this race?
Yeah, that was my exact thoughts. Again, for me, what I love about the 8 is, again, it's another horse that I don't think you'll get those odds. Maybe you will at 8-1, but regardless, I love that horse at this odds, and I think it's a great horse to have in your exactas and trifectas underneath. But I do think the 8 could be dangerous. If, as you kind of touched on, if the 8 can run how it has in its last 2 efforts, that's good enough with the figures in this field to really compete with anybody at a great price. And again, another one that doesn't need to be on the speed. It can sit off a little bit and do its best work late. It's shown, even if maybe the time form doesn't give it enough credit, in my opinion. I think the 78, at least considering it ran an 84 and 83 and it was able to kick on by that much, I think a 78 sounds too low to me. I think it's probably higher than that, but I'll take their word for it. But I do think the 8 could be very dangerous because, again, you're seeing that this horse is either coming off the pace or if it's on the lead, it's really getting away, and you're not seeing those blue figures, so it's not because it's benefiting from a slow pace by any means. And then I also saw Michael Bryant mention, which I'll let you talk on the 8 for a second, to not sleep on the 7, which is a horse that I don't have my top 3, but do have on my ticket and would like to touch on after you touch on the 8, because I do think the 7's another one at a crazy price that I don't think you'll get because of the connections.
Yeah,
I think the 7's another dangerous one.
And I agree. And to your point, Charlie, I also have the same thing. I don't have her in my top 3, but I do have her on my ticket. We'll talk about the 7 last because I'm gonna let Patrick talk about his 10.
Yeah,
since it's in his top 3. But the number 8, look, that last race was very good. Absolutely did nothing wrong. Very wide on the slop. This horse runs well on the fast as well, as you can see from 2 back. I just don't know if this horse necessarily classes up past a horse like Faiza or Merlaza or anything like that. But this horse is definitely interesting underneath. We'll get a decent trip sitting just off top flight. Again, do I think she's good enough to win this race? Maybe if the trip really works out for her, but I don't know if she classes up necessarily to the other 2. Patrick, the number 10 here, and then we'll talk about the 7 and move on. Tax is another horse that really hasn't been respected in any of her races. And besides, half of those races in the Martha Washington and the Fantasy, losing to horses like Wet Paint, Wet Paint twice, actually. Granted, didn't necessarily run the best Kentucky Oaks, but the heavy morning line favorite there, and definitely looked like the horse to beat going into that race.
Yeah, listen, like you said, finally escapes Wet Paint at facing Wet Paint at Oaklawn 3 times. And obviously Wet Paint was a little disappointing in the Kentucky Oaks, but I feel like, they ran like similar races. They were just, Tax was just not bad at all. And I just feel like she, is removing the blinkers again, is getting back, should be a fast track, not a sloppy one. And I just think like, what she could fit in this race, is the 9 Faiza dominant, sure. But I feel like Tax, at 15-1, maybe, maybe there's a chance.
There definitely is, and 15-1 is kind of nuts to me on this horse. I get there's going to be a lot of other horses that are taking money, but 15-1 on a horse like this is definitely something to consider, especially if this horse goes off anywhere near that post time wise. This is definitely a horse for me to have underneath in your exotics. I understand connections wise, people might not be betting this horse. Local ish connections. A lot of Randy Morse runs a lot of horses at Oaklawn, but just never any respect for this horse. So maybe you actually will get that 10, 15 to 1. But this horse is definitely interesting underneath. And the last horse I want to talk about here before we move into our tickets is the number 7 Comparative. Guys, she's figuring it out. I completely agree with you with Tom and Charles B. Improved going forward at a price. This horse is figuring out. Numbers are slow. This horse ran a bullet at Keeneland in her last work. So Brad Cox definitely has this horse ready. It's Godolphin, Cox, Saez. The connections are absolutely nothing to sneeze at in this race. And I think she'll get a pretty good trip. The only thing that's a little bit concerning is not the right way to put it. But you can look at these horses next buyer figures out. 3 of them have ran back, including the horse that she only beat by 3/4 of a length. And she came back to run a 45. Granted, that was in the same level of Churchill, but she just ran an absolute dud. She was close up to the pace, but then just completely tanked it. I watched the replay. You can watch it as well. I'm not going to show it here, but you can argue who she really beat in that last race. But if this filly really is figuring it out and takes another step forward for Cox, this horse is definitely live and will be definitely interesting at a price for sure. And like I said, Charlie touched on it. I don't have this horse in my top 3, but God forbid I lose my ticket to my big pick 5 ticket with maybe beating Key of Life to Godolphin, Cox, and Saez. It cannot happen for me, especially with a horse who looks like she's on the improve. I'm going 4-9-8. Patrick's going 9-4-10, and Charlie is going 9-8-4. Guys, I'm going to switch over to our pick 5s here right before we end the show. Again, very good card, very good. There's some heavy favorites in these races, but some of them I argue that you can beat, and some of them look more like they are indeed the goods. Charlie is going with the skinniest pick 5 of the entirety of us.
Charlie, it's actually even skinnier because now the 6 is out.
That's true too. Yeah. So I'm gonna actually switch that real quick. My apologies, guys. I did not switch that from there. Which makes it what? 8, 16 times 4 is 32, 64, 32. Yep.
Look at me, a little bit of math. Ohio State education.
Oh, yeah, Ohio State education. My ass. $32 for the man from Ohio State. 2-9, singling the 2, going 1-7-8-10 with 2-5 with 4-7-8-9. Now the miracle number 6 is out of the last race. Charlie, skinny ticket. Talk about your opinions.
Yeah, so, it could end up biting me. Maybe that I didn't put the 6 in that first race, let's say Spunglass, when we talk about closers. But I just really do think Her World is very legit. I know it's not even opening as the favorite. As we talked on, though, with the 2 trained Artemis, another horse with Paco that looks great. So for me, those 2 stood out. Then in the next race, I do think Key of Life has all the goods. I mean, I know we talked about the 6 potentially being dangerous and the 4 eating up the pace, but I really do think Key of Life is a horse that deserves the odds it's at in the singling. Then in the 11th race, I as much as I like Breath Away, because with those closers, even though I love closers, you do have to worry if it doesn't get the right trip or if it gets boxed in, something could go wrong. And I think that is a very competitive field, so that's why I went pretty deep and went 4 deep in that field. Then we're going with the 2-5 again, as we kind of touched on. I know you guys have the 2 on top. I think the 2 and 5 are interchangeable for me. And again, I think that really is a 2-horse race where you kind of look for a price like for me, which was the 6 for underneaths, but I don't think the horse will win. And then the last race, again, I know that the 9 is supposed to have all the goods, but for me, it's a California horse again, and it needs to prove it to me. And my angle is if I'm having Key of Life come through, there needs to be some part of my ticket where I could maybe hit big. And so that was my angle with going deep in that last race. Is the 9 may have the goods, but if I want any chance to make a lot of money, I need to have some other horses in there like the 4, 7, and 8, where we've talked about why any of those 3 horses could have a shot. And yeah, any of those, if they were to come in, would obviously pay enough to kind of make up for the 2. But that's why I singled that one earlier. So yeah, it's risky, but I wanted to single. It's an affordable ticket for our audience, and I do think it has every bit of chance of hitting.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only thing that I'll touch on, and I know Patrick has the same opinion, is the first race to me seems like a little bit more of a spread race, which at $32, you have the option to go deep. For anyone in the audience listening, obviously these are the tickets that we're giving out, but feel free to add anything you can. And that first leg is the leg, in my opinion, that you can definitely add more horses to. But I love the skinny tickets. You know that, coming from the college student education, playing it cheap. I love the cheap tickets. So Charlie, I'll never again talk you off of it. Patrick is going a little bit more of a bolder dollar number here. $72 is the number. 4589 with 24, with 128, with 25, with 4910. So no singles for Patrick, but 2 deep in the 12th, and then only 2 deep in the 10th. Patrick, talk about your opinions.
Yeah, listen, I got to hit one of these pick fives. I could have easily I could have easily have singled 3 horses in this sequence, and it could have been a $9 ticket. But I think I can hit this, and I like to include when I do not single a horse, and then I back it up with another horse. I usually like to put in a decent long shot, just so it might pay. But in the first leg, go with the 2 Wesley Wards, and then the 2 closers I like. And then Key of Life in the second race, along with the 4, who is going to be a decent price. I'm going to go 3 deep in the that was the Turf Mile with Breath Away, and I like the 8 Chad Brown, and the 2 for Pletcher, who might be the speed of the speed. Then 2-5. I wanted to single Rattle and Roll, but I just wasn't. I don't know. Law Professor might show up, and then I'd be very upset if Law Professor won and I didn't have on my ticket. And then in the Black Eyed Susan, 4, 9, and 10. I think Faiza is going to win it, but I can't dismiss the Cox horse. And then Tax is my long shot. I will definitely play an exacta with Tax and Faiza.
Yeah, and look, I have not, we were talking about on the show. I have nothing to go against those opinions there. And again, this is a ticket that if you don't feel comfortable singling, or you don't have as big of opinions in those races to single, the 2-4 that we were talking about, earlier in the show with Charlie in the chat was, you take maybe the 2 or the 6, and then you add the 4 in there if the pace does get really hot. You don't add more dollar amounts to your ticket, which I'm do as I say and as I do if you want, but as you'll see in a second. But I can't disagree with any of your opinions. But Patrick, I did what you couldn't bring yourself to do. I'm playing it for 90, and I did single Rattle and Roll. I went 2, 4, 5, 7, 9 with 2, 4, 6 with 1, 3, 7 with 2 with 4, 7, 8, 9. Again, that is a $90 ticket. And guys, like I said at the beginning of the show, the first race, the 9th race, is that 5 furlong turf sprint. There's a lot of horses, in my opinion, that can win. And it just comes down to the fact that Howard preaches this on his show. I just hate turf sprints. And I can never seem to get that awful. with a race that has a lot of pace into it. I like the 2 can sit off. The 4 and the 5 are the 2 closers that I really liked. The 7 is actually, it's not the 7. It is the 8. Excuse me. It's the other Wesley Ward. Sorry. It is the first leg is 2, 4, 5, 8, 9. The 7 is that MTO. So my apologies with the numbering. It is 2, 4, 5, 8, 9 in the first leg. So 8 is Spicy Marg, and 9 is the other Ward, Her World. I will not get beat by Wesley Ward in the turf sprint. I will not bring myself to do it. But if you can beat them, your ticket also goes up a lot. I don't think they're going to be the high morning line odds that they are. I think Her World will most likely, with IRAD, be the morning line favorite. But again, that's my biggest spread race on the card. The second race is the Miss Preakness 264. I talked about it. I want to be Key of Life because that's where my value is going to come from. If I can do it, if Key of Life wins, then it's the way it goes. But the 4 is my best closer in that race, and the 6 is Maple Leaf Mel. Hoping for some value there. 137 in the mile. That's including one of the Chad Browns, the horse that I think has more upside. That's number 3, Asprey. I keep saying Asprey. I think it's a spray, guys. It's not Asprey. It's a spray. My apologies. It's not Asprey.
On that note,
on that note, I don't necessarily like Up and Down that much. The other Chad can definitely win. Hang the Moon is the long shot that I have for Stidham and Gaffleon that we talked about there. But I'm going 3 deep there. Again, I'm singling Rattle and Roll. And then the last race, the Black Eyed Susan, I'm going to try and beat Faiza. I have the same exact top 4 that Charlie has, the 4, 7, 8, 9. And the funny thing is, guys, we didn't even talk about Hoosier Philly. But with how she's been recently, I we had to touch on her because it's like I said, America's horse and 7-1 Derby pool. But she has to show it to me again, guys. And I mean, realistically, you can even argue that she wasn't that necessarily that good to begin with, but she just had the hype behind her, and she won that race at Churchill, and everyone was all, holy crap, this is the best, the second coming of Rachel Alexander, or whatever. It is what it is. But I wanted to touch at least a little bit on Hoosier Philly, considering I had her in the thumbnail. But
that seemed like good enough.
It is. I mean, she has to show it again, realistically. And none of us have her anywhere. So if she wins that horse, then so be it. Screw her. But again, Merlaza, and then I have Comparative, the Brad Cox Godolphin runner, but Ballpool, the Atris Franco, and then Faiza, of course, hoping to beat Faiza in the Irish race for some value on a $90 ticket. But guys, it could be Osprey too. Thank you, Rob. It could be Osprey like the bird. But yeah,
I'm not an expert in names, but I'm fairly confident it's not Osprey.
I'm sure it's a spray. I'm sure it's a spray. But guys, real quick, thank you so much for all the viewership. It's been absolutely great this entire show. And I get it's a big weekend, but still, it's been absolutely great. Thank you guys so much from all of us to you guys. We could not do this show without you. Otherwise, the boss would get on us. But thank you again to everybody out there.
Can I give a quick shout out real quick?
Yep, go for it.
I just want to shout out Mage. I'm rooting for Mage, man. Get that Triple Crown. Prove me right. Love that horse.
Man,
Let's go Mage.
I'll take first mission for me, Patrick. I don't know about you, but I'm going first mission.
Yeah,
you got
I think Mage
one of your co-hosts pick a horse that was 17-1 to win the Triple Crown.
My rebuttal is you did not pick him on top. That's my rebuttal. You mentioned that horse can win.
Hold on, I had it second behind Forte, who scratched, and on top of that, when we did the show, like the co-host show, everybody around when I landed in Phoenix, I told everybody to pick Mage anyway. So
I'll give it to you. But again, I was going to say you did not pick that horse on top, but I'll give it to you. You did give out a tout on a 17-1.
I also have the same idiot though who did pick it over Forte when you guys both told me I was crazy that Forte destroyed it earlier on.
Well,
it was one of the ones we covered on our show.
But obviously the guys will all talk about it tomorrow. The boss says so. Be there tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. It is an hour earlier than this show is. 8 p.m. Eastern, covering the late Pick 5 on Preakness Day. Please go watch that show. It is going to be absolutely amazing with Howard, Pete, Paul, and a special guest. Again, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is Thursday, tomorrow. Guys, again, it's been an absolutely great show. Hit up those power picks, hit your bets, and we will see you guys all tomorrow night for the flagship show. For Friday and Saturday at the Preakness, good luck, all of you. Hit all your bets, and have a great night, everyone.